Welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we have a great guest, one of our favorite people, Christine Lynn from Hall & Hunter Realtors, because the bottom line is if you want to know what's going on in a community, ask a realtor. So we're going to jump right in. First, a little bit about you. You're at Hall & Hunter. What's your specialty? How long have you been in business?
Chuck, thank you so much for having me on. I always enjoy our very intellectual discourses back and forth. I think the community can learn a lot from us as we talk about the different topics. I'm passionate about real estate, predominantly residential real estate, although I do some commercial, and I certainly keep tabs on what's happening in our local commercial market. I've been in the business over 10 years, quickly became one of the top producers in the area. I would say that I'm more than passionate about real estate. I'm obsessed with real estate in our community. Lifetime community member, product of Birmingham Public Schools and the University of Michigan.
Oh, well, so you're having a great year this year with U of M. I got to say, I went to a college that's so elite. We really don't have a football program, Michigan State. So next year. All right. So now I'm just going to throw the quick one at you. What's going on in the local real estate market?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've read the headlines and are aware of, economically, the residential market has really cooled off a bit. We can talk about why, lots of reasons why. Probably, leading the discussion would be the mortgage rates and just really lack of confidence kind of in the economy. And we've become global citizens. So what's happening in the world is now impacting the way we feel in terms of our financial confidence. And so we've definitely seen a cooling off in residential, yet despite the cooling off, home prices remain very strong, historically speaking.
Well, now here's I don't pay attention to this. You do. Is that you're talking about housing affordability, among other things. Birmingham, I don't know how, you can't just stay in Birmingham itself. It's not that big, but Birmingham is tearing down all the old little houses and building big new ones. That's got to affect affordability somehow.
Yeah, great point. So, there's definitely, even within just Birmingham, take that zip code alone, there are sub markets. Okay. So there's a market of older homes, original condition, smaller footprints, and those sell at a certain price per square foot. And then there's the new construction. The new construction can literally sell for 4 times as much per square foot. Insatiable demand for new, updated, higher ceilings, like definitely green type features. When I say green, I mean LED lighting throughout and, higher levels of insulation, and people are willing to pay for that. And so, kudos to the builders that are building what, the marketplace really wants. But so you can't really compare those two markets. They're completely different pools of buyers and they're really different price points. And yet they happily coexist in Birmingham, Michigan.
Well, Birmingham has always kind of had a diversity of housing. I mean, on one hand, you have the smaller, they almost look like little up north homes, sort of south of Lincoln, and then you have the big stuff around and different. A lot of the post-war bungalows, lots of those, like down around Villa where my daughter used to live. But it seems like every time one of those comes on the market now, they get kind of blown down in something bigger. Now, I think in some sense this is really great for the city because the upward spiral is much better than the other one. But where do people get starter homes, or is it like you want a starter home, you buy in Royal Oak?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, professionally speaking, you've got to figure out what your budget is and what you can afford, and then we'll back into how much house and what kind of house you can afford, given your budget. And like I just said, these homes, original condition, post-war, coexist right alongside of aside of the newer construction, and construction really everywhere in between. I mean, construction has been happening continuously in the Birmingham area. You could have a 1929 home next to a 1980 home next to a home built in 2022. So really, it's great for the buyer. They have great options and selection. The fascinating thing is for today's show, I pulled the data on all of Oakland County. The average price per home in all of Oakland County is $350,000. Now that surprises most people. Most people would say it's 500,000. How could it only be 350,000? Have you looked at listings lately? Have you seen how much my neighbor's house went for? But the truth of the matter is we really do have in Oakland County that very diverse nature of very smaller, older homes, along with the very larger, newer homes combined for an average of 350,000.
Well, it's a big county. I mean, it's a very big county. It's like 900 something square miles. It's in fact, Oakland is the biggest county in the state of Michigan south of the bridge. So you've got not just Birmingham, not just the Woodward Corridor and Troy and all. You got South Lyon. You've got Pontiac. You've got Howell. I mean, not Howell. You've got Holly. You've got some seriously rural areas. So I'm not surprised at all about that. What I find is interesting is that this run up in housing prices. I mean, 10 years ago, you couldn't give these things away anywhere because of Great Recession. Is the overhang from the Great Recession basically gone?
Great point. Let's just talk about basic economics. Economics 101, supply and demand.
You're talking my language.
Right. We all know that there's no supply, no inventory of homes on market right now, which should be driving up, prices. And it has to some extent. Home prices that, I just quoted you, the 350,000, that's up 7% from a year ago. So there has been a 7% increase in home values, in response to the supply and demand issue. But when we talk about affordability, housing affordability, the mortgage rates have killed affordability. People are paying much, much more. You compound slight uptick in pricing within a dramatic increase in what they're going to pay if they carry a mortgage. And statistically speaking, over 90% of home purchasers use some form of a mortgage, even if they, have an 80% down payment, they're still mortgaging something. So, the affordability factor is out of control. That increase in what it will cost you to own a home is much more than the 7% increase we're seeing in the actual home prices.
Now, as far as the mortgage rates, and once again, it wasn't that long ago that they were giving money away. I mean, they were, almost paying you to take it. What about, historically, it doesn't seem that high. I mean, I remember, rates being almost double digit.
Yeah, you got it exactly. You know your numbers. So historically, if you go back 50 years, you're going to see that the average is 7%, which is, surprising to some. Some people who are just used to a 3% kind of mortgage environment are shocked to hear that, going back in time, 7% is a statistical average. Today we're sitting kind of at market average. It doesn't feel like market average, but the data shows that it really is.
Well, when you're in the summer, it's nice, but you have to remember it's going to one way or another, it's going to be January at some point. What about what's interesting is that the last time we had a lot of inflation and tried to wring it out, we had like 21% CDs, and I think wasn't the prime like 14%, stuff like that, which of course killed Detroit for a while. Now a lot of this, we're still, I still think we're kind of in an unbalanced situation with all the COVID money and all that kind of trying to work its way out. But 7% is the historical average, really. I believe you. It's just, okay. I'm just good, Bill. Good. I'm glad someone knows this. I'm glad you know your stuff. So historically, it's still not that high.
Right. Historically, it's really not, although home prices are historically high. The rampant inflation from, 2022 caused, this hike in rates. They did just this weekend tick down. We've dipped down beneath 7% for the first time in a long time at 6.95%. You'll see that advertised and published. If you look today, I think people, when I'm working with home buyers, they're asking me, well, when is it how long will I have to wait before it's back down at 3? I heard it, they're going to bring rates down next year. Okay, they might bring them down, but, maybe the low 6s, I, I'm not a mortgage broker, not licensed. My gut feeling is low 6s is what I'm preparing my clients for as they're figuring out affordability. I'm not preparing them to see 3% rates.
Well, I'm not an economist, though I play one on TV sometimes.
Hey.
Yeah, but hey, look, anyone can be an economist. Geez, you just have to say you are. What's his name in the New York Times? Friedman. He's been wrong for 30 years. But the deal is that with I know that the Fed, they've been walking back that comment from last week about, we're done. We're going to start lowering it. The stock market went bananas, and they're going, oops, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You shouldn't really be listening to us. But you mentioned also low housing inventory.
Yes.
So is that really the culprit? I mean, why is it just we're not building new homes, or it's just we had this gap where the Great Recession happened? We had a ton of stuff on the market, so why build new? And now that bulge or skinny snake is kind of working its way through.
Yeah, I attribute it honestly, Chuck, more to the fact that at the end of the low rates that we came out of, a government published that 80% of Americans were holding mortgages beneath 4%. So 80% of America took advantage of that low rate culture. And they don't want to give that up and trade that in for something in the 7s and as high as the 8s here recently. And then, politically, we have become a global society. And there's a lot of things going on that cause people uncertainty. And the number one thing you need when you're doing a real estate transaction is confidence, right? You're going to confidently sell. You're going to boldly ask for a strong price. You're going to negotiate the best deal you can for mortgage rate moving forward in the house you're purchasing. You're going to negotiate hard on that one. All of those require confidence. And I think we lack that confidence right now. People are feeling very uncertain and vulnerable, and they're clinging to what they have, which is great, which is a low rate.
Well, if I had a 3% rate and I could go with the house I have now, I would stay, maybe add on or do that, but I wouldn't be eager to up that either. That makes perfect sense to me. So if the rates are not going to go back down to the bonanza years of 3 or maybe like 2.9, and that's not going to happen, eventually you're going to be like we were with a bad situation. We had 2 little girls and only 1 bathroom upstairs. We knew they'd kill each other. We did a bigger home, and so we did. What about, isn't that eventually going to happen?
So people always need to move, to your point. The people that must move will move. And really, COVID changed a lot of housing requirements. There are people now that, they want a home gym and they need an extra space for home office. The beautiful thing about the mortgage rates is I try to tell my clients, don't let them scare you terribly, because eventually they will adjust back down. And you, like everyone else in the world, will refi at that point, right? You'll do a revision to your mortgage. You'll bring your payment down. And in light of how low unemployment is and how strong wages are right now, it's a fair trade-off, for quality of daily life, right? So there are people are definitely willing and you really need to make that change. We're probably seeing a little less physical relocation now, as there are all sorts of hybrid and remote, jobs available. But I think more than ever, people are spending more time in their home. And I think the data really proves that to be true. And so, frankly, it's just worth it for people that are going to spend so much time in their home to have kind of the amenities that they need. And those are the people that are confident and are in the market. And, just as I talk about data, I don't want you to think that no one's in the market. I have I have piles of files of clients that we're waiting for the right property to come on market. And at that point, they're going to buy. But they may not buy the super fixer upper that they would have before because, they're heading into it with higher overall costs. So turnkey is the answer. It is the secret to the real estate market right now, today's market.
Turnkey is king. Well, around here, schedule is king too. We're going to be taking a quick break, and then we'll come right back with Christine Lynn, Hall & Hunter Realtors. Like I said, if you want to know what's going on in the community, talk to a realtor. I'm Chuck Moss. Don't go away. We'll be right back here on Eye on Oakland. Welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host. We're talking with Christine Lynn, Hall & Hunter Realtors, and you see a lot of stuff that goes on. You don't understand why it happens. The people who understand kind of why it happens and how it's happening are the realtors. Now, I'm going to ask you, we were talking about the reason why housing is expensive. Part of it is the historically normal they seem like higher interest rates, mortgage rates, and of course, a lack of housing inventory, or a lot of it. Now, I'm going to ask you a quick question. This has to be affecting rents. For a while, people were renting. What's going on with renting?
Yeah, great question.
Well, it ought to be, because these are your questions, actually. So.
First of all, the average age at which the home buyer purchases their first home is increasing, meaning people are staying as renters later into, their young adulthood before they make that first purchase. So you've got increased demand and increased pressure on the rent market. And as you can imagine, supply and demand, when there are more renters trying to rent fewer a stable number of available units, rent prices are going to increase. And that's exactly what we've seen. In Oakland County, our average is $1,412 a month, which is, $400 more than the state of Michigan. So obviously, Oakland County draws a premium rent price. Rent prices are always based on per square foot, in general. Obviously, you're going to take into account extra features like location and amenities. So quite frankly, most people who are renting are probably paying a little more than if they took advantage of home ownership at today's current rates, which, in the first segment of today's show, we talked about, how they're higher than they've been, but even so, rents are higher yet. And that's because, the owner of the property, they have to make a profit. They have to allow for maintenance updates and repairs. They're covering their same interest and holding costs, and they're covering insurance costs. And so inherent in the nature of rent is something called profit. So you are typically going to pay more when you rent than if you owned a home.
Well, if you own the home, you're your own landlord. Of course,
Yeah.
That means you have to fix up your stuff, but that is good. Now, I don't know if I keep hearing like little rumors that at the state level, the current legislature decided they want to get into rent control and other things. Haven't we just figured out over the years all across the country that rent control is an absolute killer? It's awful, destroys communities.
Yeah. That's a whole subject matter for another day. I have a son who's an engineer who lives in Germany, and he lives in a rent-controlled apartment, and it's fascinating to me. It's certainly not capitalism, as I question, well, how does the owner cover his expenses if everything is rent-controlled? And as we all know, everywhere globally, the costs of, heating fuel, there's a huge shortage over there. So it doesn't make economic sense to me. I can't quite figure out ultimately who's covering these costs and how it works out. But that would be a great topic for another day.
Okay. Well, you and I both share that it doesn't work. It's not good. Now, but we're talking, we're rents. If the renting is getting worse, are people being essentially forced, although to do something good, by the pressure to bite the bullet and buy homes, now's a good time.
Absolutely. I have worked with so many first-time home buyers over the last 5 years, just as rents have risen over the last few years. Um, at the same time, instant technology has become available. So anywhere on the internet you can go, you can do a quick mortgage calculator. If I bought a home at this much, at today's current rate, what would I pay monthly? And access to information has empowered people to see the answer, and they realize, wow, I would be spending less in my monthly expense if I were to purchase rather than rent. And so it has driven a lot of renters into the first time, entry level housing market. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a good thing, because the more homeowners you have in the community, the more people you have invested in the community itself. And rent is good. Renters are good people, but you get a homeowner, you get a citizen, which is not a bad thing at all.
Absolutely. And you get long-term asset appreciation, meaning the price you pay for that home historically, if we look, will be of a higher value. So it's kind of like a built-in savings investment plan for people, as well as lower monthly expense, for sure.
Plus, you get a house. I like my house. And if you have houses, you can have a backyard, and if you have a backyard, you can have a dog, and then you can have a kid. So that's everybody wins, and maybe a grandkid too.
There you go.
Now let's switch gears. Yeah.
I want to interrupt and just tell you some of the most exciting features when people transition from rent to own is the freedom to park where they want to park and have pets and like have parties and not be disturbing somebody who has a shared wall to them, and not being limited with rules and bylaws. It's very exciting. The freedom that you have when you do make that transition. It's one of my favorite things to witness as I work with first-time home buyers.
When we bought our first house, which is actually just a few blocks away from where we're living now, but what really hit us? We can put pictures on the wall wherever we want to. Now we have to, make sure we're not drilling holes or whatever. We can put pictures up wherever we want to. It's our house. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. It's truly the American dream, and it is. It's an exciting, freeing time. So
now let's kind of switch gears. I know that you know about it. It's not necessarily your area of expertise, but it's important. Office commercial. And this has been I've been drumming the drum on this one for a while. How is office commercial doing, both generally in the area and also in Birmingham?
Yeah, great questions. So as we've seen housing prices hold steady and increase, we've seen commercial prices decrease. So I took a look at the data for today for, Oakland County for the last year, and we're down 27.5% on the prices. And now those are for sales, not for leases. If we look at commercial leases, lease prices are down 18%. So a significant decrease, not as significant as the 27.5%. Oakland County, Michigan, those are our year-to-date, statistics, which I think we all feel as we see people transitioning to hybrid and work from home. Companies no longer really can utilize all the office space that they once owned or leased. And so they're scaling back. If they had held 3 buildings, maybe they're only going to keep 1 and they're going to sell 2. And with, the flood of inventory on the market, both for sale and for lease and commercial, we've seen the prices come down, and the sales and occupancy rates as well, all come down.
Now, when we're talking commercial / we're basically talking office. We're not talking retail, or are we? Or, because I want to talk different animals.
Yeah, the data that I pulled was both. It was all the different, whether it's warehouse, whether it's office or retail. Those numbers I just quoted were combined between all the forms of commercial. here in
Are
Oakland.
you, I'm just wondering if the, like I said, I've been kind of watching this office thing. Now, we had a guest who was a Birmingham City Commissioner on it, and he says that Birmingham office actually has bucked the trend and gone to 90% occupancy, which, wow, and that's good. That's good, but that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, I also heard a presentation from the principal shopping district for Birmingham talk about how their occupancy rates are incredibly high. So, yeah, I heard the same data that you heard. The data that we pull for Oakland County that combines all forms of commercial isn't as positive as downtown Birmingham, but I think downtown Birmingham has had a great strategic plan and they've been implementing their plan well. And I think that numbers like that prove that, the decisions and the changes they've made are really helping them stand out in comparison to other areas and the county, trends in general.
It's great that Birmingham is doing great, but that means that averages, the other places are not. What are we going to do with some of these places, like say, like at 13 Mile and Telegraph, say, or some of the bigger office buildings in Southfield or Troy? What's going to happen to them?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I've always felt like we have an entrepreneurial spirit here in Michigan, especially in the Detroit area. And we need to, transition those buildings into mixed use. And, in our earlier segment, we were talking about, there's a shortage of residential lease units available, right? A lot of pressure on the leasing market. And to be able to transition these spaces into multi-use where we do have some residential, typically the upper floors are residential and then the second floor will be office. The first floor will be retail. I think the trends for dining out are pretty strong. I think we could, do well to retail / eatery type places on the first floor. And I think that will just happen naturally because I do believe we've got a lot of smart people here that are watching the trends and they're seeing where the needs are. And we basically need to just kind of shift our thinking on commercial and really think about space in general. We have this space. What is the greatest demand for space right now in our county?
Believe it or not, one thing I've heard is warehouse, is that these places are great for warehouse, and there's always a need for that. But it's sort of like hearing that we're having problems with horses, and the horses this and the difference, and we're having trouble getting livery stables, and we're having trouble getting people who are blacksmiths. And then there's this thing called the internal combustion. People are building these things called cars. Maybe we should be looking into that. So it's good to know that the entrepreneurial spirit is doing well. Christine Lynn of Hall and Hunter Realtors, thanks for coming in and kind of giving us the story behind the story. Like I've said before, if you want to know what's going on in your community, ask a realtor. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Always interesting and exciting. I feel like we covered a diverse spectrum of topics. I'm eager to help any of your viewers and answer their questions as well.
Well, that's why we're glad to have you on. Christine Lynn, Hall and Hunter Realtors. All right. I'm Chuck Moss. It's been a good show today, and hopefully we'll see you again. And we'll be once again right here on Eye on Oakland.